So far, so good. It's a fun little run. Feeling good today. Haven't run 8 miles on the road in a while. It's pretty cold. As you can tell, I can barely move my lips, but what's up everybody, Dan the Ultra Dad here for a pretty cool comparison. So hope you enjoyed the run today. First of all, I really had a fun time comparing 3 different shoes and how they perform in the snow. So tonight we're going to be discussing how the ALTRA Olympus 4.0, the HOKA Speedgoat 3, and the Nike Pegasus Trail 2 GTXs perform in the snow. Which one's better? Which one is a better snowshoe? We're about to find out. I'm going to go through a couple different parameters on each one and let you know for a final score what I think is the best trail shoe in the snow. Let's get started. All right, once again, thanks for joining me tonight for this review, this comparison video. Very excited about it. Last time I did a comparison video, I was looking at the Speedgoat 3 and the ALTRA Olympus, and I looked at, I ran a 50K and I looked at which one was better. I can't wait. Today I didn't get a whole 50K, but I did do 10 miles, a 10-mile long run in the snow, and I wore each of these shoes for about 3 miles. I wore the Nike Pegasus Trail 2 for 3 miles, and then I wore the other 2 shoes for 3.5 each for a total of 10 miles. Took about an hour and a half for my run today. It was all on the road, so what I did was I decided, you know, these are trail shoes, but if we're going to be looking at how they perform in the snow, we need to be on a surface that's kind of a neutral surface that has snow on it, and it's what better surface than road as far as testing how much traction you have, because usually the traction is worse on the road when there's snow on it. So I thought that that was a good idea, and so that's what we chose to do for this review. All right, so for each of these shoes, we're going to be looking at the first one. You know, with any snow situation, you're looking at warmth. We're going to look at the traction, we're going to be looking at the speed, and the moisture control. So all of these things are important when you're looking at a shoe and how they would perform in the snow. So I'm going to be rating each one on a scale of 1 to 10, and we're going to add it up at the end and see which one wins. Before we do get into the review, if you like my channel, definitely hit the subscribe button. Hit the like, thumbs up as well with this video if you enjoy it. And if you really want to see my videos in the future, hit the notification bell and it will tell you when my new videos are coming out. All right, with that out of the way, let's get to the review. Okay, so the first shoe I ran in for the first 3 miles was the Nike Pegasus Trail 2 GTXs. The Nike Pegasus Trail 2 GTXs have Gore-Tex, and they are supposed to be kind of a transition shoe. Let's go through each of these 4 parameters and see how they performed. So the Nike Pegasus Trail 2 GTXs, first of all, are a very warm shoe. The GTX, the Gore-Tex, helps to keep them warm. Your feet are definitely staying warm and toasty. They get a 8 out of 10 for warmth. The only reason they wouldn't get a 9 or a 10 out of 10 is because sometimes your feet start to sweat, which can actually make you get cooler. But in the end, they do a good job at keeping you warm. Number 2, traction. All right, let's talk about a couple different types of traction, and we'll be applying this to all of these shoes. For each shoe, we're going to be looking at the forefoot traction, lateral traction, and then overall traction. Let's first talk about forefoot traction. With the Pegasus Trail 2 GTXs, the forefoot traction is mediocre, okay? So, you know, this is, if you've seen my review, my full review of the Pegasus Trail 2 GTXs, you know that it's a big concern I have with this shoe, is the traction. The forefoot is no exception to that. So whenever you come down on your forefoot, when you're in your regular stride, when you're running, you just feel like, you just can't be sure that it's gonna stay there, okay? I can't say I fell, that didn't happen, but I was very cautious and I was very concerned with whether I was going to end up slipping. So, and that's not the case for the other shoes that I'm about to mention. But in this case, the Nike Pegasus Trail 2 GTXs have a big problem with the forefoot traction. All right, let's talk about lateral traction. I didn't test this part so much because I was actually pretty worried that I might fall. So I'm going to say that that's a pretty bad score for that reason. So what I was doing in general with the other shoes with testing lateral traction is I would kind of do like a football move, go back and forth and see if my foot would slip out from underneath me or start to. And with this shoe, I was just too concerned to actually try it. So we'll leave it at that. Let's talk about the overall score. You know, again, I didn't feel very good in these shoes on snow. Let's just be honest. The traction is a big problem. I'm going to give it a 4. And with my scoring system, you know, keep in mind, I'm comparing these to other trail shoes. So a 4 means it's really bad. Okay, so definitely compared to other road shoes, these would give you more traction, okay, but not a whole lot more, which is shocking. And like I said, Nike kind of advertises that this is traction that you can depend on. That's crazy. All right, so the third thing with the Nike Pegasus Trail 2 GTXs in the snow is the speed. This gets definitely a positive review for me. I felt like these shoes moved very quickly in my review. I mentioned that they're light and fast, and so definitely speed is a positive with these shoes, especially considering they're 11.1 ounces for a size 9. So they're pretty hefty shoes. These are not actually very light, but they feel that way, and so speed is a positive for these shoes. Finally, moisture control. The Nike Pegasus Trail 2 GTXs are going to get a high review from me on moisture control. Definitely, you know, keeping moisture out of the shoe, oh, I mean, these are a 10 out of 10. I can't give it that score, though, because the breathability can be a factor, can be an issue. Now, my feet, you know, I hate to they don't sweat that much, okay? It's kind of gross, but they don't sweat that much generally, but in these shoes, they definitely did. So if you sweat a lot with your feet, if your feet sweat a lot, then you might have major problems with the Nike Pegasus 2 Nike Pegasus Trail 2 GTXs. That's kind of a mouthful. So from the moisture control standpoint, outside in, 10 out of 10. Inside out, breathability, you're talking probably more like a 6 out of 10. So overall, I'll give it an 8 out of 10. All right, I'm just going to give it an 8 out of 10, right in the middle there. Overall, the Nike Pegasus Trail 2 GTXs, you've got 9 for warmth, you have 4 for traction, you have 8 for speed, and 8 for moisture control. So it performs pretty well in 3 of these 4 categories. It's just that traction. And in the end, the traction matters the most, I think. So that's the Nike Pegasus Trail 2 GTXs. Let's get into the Ultra Olympus 4.0s. All right. So the Ultra Olympus 4.0s right here, really nice looking shoe. I love this. Has a Vibram outsole. You know, that's probably why it does so well in the snow. Anyway, okay, let's get back to the review. So these are my trusty Ultra Olympus 4.0s. Let's go through each of these parameters and tell you how they did. So number 1, warmth. Really, I'll be honest, it's not a GTX, it's not a Gore-Tex shoe, but they keep these, you know, they keep your feet very warm. And they're pretty breathable too. There's these holes right here. There are definitely holes right here, but your feet don't feel like that they're freezing cold or anything. Today I was running out in the snow. It was, you know, you saw, I mean, it was pretty blustery. It was actually snowing, and I had no problems with these shoes. They kept my feet pretty warm. I won't give it the same marks as I did the Nike Trail 2 GTXs because the Nike Trail 2s are just super warm. Okay, almost too warm, let's be honest. So these, I'll give it a 7 out of 10 for warmth. Not bad. Big plus here is the traction. Traction is the second one. We probably should have saved it for last because it is the best. This Vibram outsole, man, I mean, just super impressive. I really, really liked these in the snow. The traction on these shoes was second to none. So I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10. I mean, it might be a 10 out of 10. I was very impressed. I think a big part of it is, I'm sure you saw in the video, the footprint. This is such a wide platform that it gives you a lot of area here for the shoe to grip the ground. Even though these lugs aren't that aggressive, I mean, they're not super aggressive, but there's a bunch of them. And if you notice my shoes, these are pretty worn down. So let's take a look here. These shoes are very worn down because I've run almost 400 miles in them. But let's get my face back in. But the platform is so wide that they just did so well traction-wise. As you can tell, I'm very excited about that. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. Probably should be a 10, like I said. Very good job with traction. Let's talk each of the different types of traction. We've got forefoot traction. I had no problems with the toe off when I was trying to. I went ahead and tried to run fast in them, and I just had no problems. I mean, these shoes did so good and kept such a good grip on that snow. I was totally confident that I was not going to slip. There was not a question in my mind. After running in them for about a half mile, and of course I went 3.5. I just felt great in them from a forefoot standpoint. Lateral traction, the same thing. I did some of those football moves, those lateral moves, and I didn't slip at all. It was very impressive from a lateral traction standpoint too. So overall, 9 out of 10 for traction. Really can't say enough good things about the traction of the ALTRA Olympus 4.0. Third thing, speed. This definitely takes a hit on speed. I think for me at least, it's because of the zero drop. Whenever I wear zero drop shoes, and I love zero drop shoes, they're just not that fast. But from a speed standpoint, it's not the best. I mean, it wasn't bad. I feel like these are very light, so I would give it at least a 7 out of 10, but not, we're not talking about a super speedy shoe here. All right, and then moisture control, I had no problems because it's not nearly as protective as the Gore-Tex. I would say from a running in the snow standpoint for moisture control, it was very breathable from the inside out. From the outside in, protecting your feet from colder moisture, I'd probably give it a 6 out of 10. So total score, looking at I really should have written down these scores, that's probably a good idea. So we'll look at the total scores at the end. All right, so finally, the HOKA Speedgoat 3.0s. Very dirty, sorry about that. But just goes to show how much I use these shoes. These things have taken a beating. I've used them quite a bit. Here's the outsole here. So we got some nice lugs here, nice lug pattern, I think generally. Definitely do very well on trails. So let's talk about running in the snow in the HOKA Speedgoat 3.0s. Okay, so number one, warmth. I mean, it's about the same as the ALTRA Olympus 4.0s, and quite frankly, all three of these did okay from a warmth standpoint. It's just, I would give it, a 7 out of 10 for warmth. I mean, it does just fine. It's not an issue. So the next thing is traction. All right, so traction, again, is the biggest topic. I probably should have put it fourth, but let's just talk about it. The traction in the HOKA Speedgoat 3.0s is very interesting. So it's not overall as good as the Olympus 4.0s, the Ultra Olympuses, okay? I mean, overall, I would say the traction is definitely better in those, but it's not nearly as bad as the Pegasus Trail 2s. So these lugs do a great job at giving you traction. Like I said, they do a great job with traction on the trails. I really like them there for sure. But when you're talking about snow, I would give these, as far as traction, probably a 7 out of 10. There's an interesting aspect to this. So let's talk about each of the areas. So forefoot traction I thought was fine. It did a good job. Again, not as good as the Olympus. As far as the lateral traction, I did the football moves. I went side to side and had no problems. I wasn't feeling super unstable. I felt like I was going to be able to maintain my traction. But one other category that I haven't brought up with the other shoes, because it really didn't come up in my mind as I was running in them, is I don't know how to describe it, but when I would run in slushy conditions, so when I ran on the slush, and you see it in the video here, but rather than just pure snow, these were the winners. So I don't know what it is about this Vibram outsole that HOKA has put together for the Speedgoats, but when these make contact with the pavement, it's almost like there's absolutely no way that you're going to slip. okay? You almost feel like you're getting stuck to the pavement. I don't know if it's how the tackiness of this rubber, I don't know what the deal is, but it felt like I had more traction in that situation than I did with the ALTRA Olympus overall. But the thing is, this is a snow review, so not a slush review. Now, sometimes snow brings some slush with it, and sometimes you're running on the roads. So in that situation, man, it outperformed all of the shoes. Honestly, it was probably the tackiest and gave me the most traction of any shoe I've ever worn in the snow around the slush areas. It just wasn't quite as good, and I think it's because these lugs are kind of separated out a bit. And yeah, they're worn down a bit too, but I think that they're not quite as... There just aren't quite as many of them as in the Ultra shoes. So I think that's probably the reason for it, and probably why the Olympus overall beats the HOKA. But as far as the HOKA and with traction, we'll go ahead and give it, you know, like I said, a 7 out of 10. I think it did a good job. So then let's talk about the speed. These were pretty speedy. I mean, I feel like they're very light shoes given the amount of stack height that you have. So I give them, you know, as far as speed, I'll give them like a 7 out of 10. They didn't feel nearly as fast as the Pegasus, but you know, if you can't stay on your feet, if you're falling flat on your face, well then there's really no point to speed. So there's that. And then moisture control, just about the same as the ALTRA Olympus, not as good. Maybe these are a little bit less breathable than the Olympus 4.0s. With the moisture, I'll give it a 6 out of 10. So. All right, so now we've gotten a chance to talk about each of these shoes in the snow. We've got the Nike Pegasus Trail 2 GTXs, which do a pretty bad job in the snow as far as traction, which is the most important aspect of being able to run in the snow. But they are warm, they do feel fast, and they do an amazing job with moisture control. Then we have the ALTRA Olympus 4.0s that are, you know, warm enough, nothing special. Definitely the best traction of all three shoes. They felt fairly speedy, although with the zero drop, that did affect the speed. And then with the moisture control, it was kind of average. So, and then finally we had the HOKA One Speedgoat 3.0s that basically performed a lot like the ALTRA Olympuses, were a little bit faster, but did not provide as much traction as the ALTRA Olympuses. So really, I think it kind of depends on what kind of shoe you need. Are you an ultra runner? Do you run trails for days on end? You know, are you out there for 3-4 hours? And traction is your #1 priority? Well, then the ALTRA Olympus 4.0 is definitely your shoe in that case. Are you trying to run fast? And do you need traction? In that case, I would go with the Speedgoat 3s because it's going to provide you with both a shoe that gives you a bit of a drop and allows you to go fast, but also provides you with a very good amount of traction in the snow, and that's not going to be an issue. And then finally, are you looking for like a transition shoe? Are you really looking for a trail shoe? If that's you, and you're not even sure if you really want to be on the trails half the time, then maybe the Pegasus Trail 2 GTXs is for you. But even in that case, if there's snow on the ground, I'd be very, very careful because they seem to be extremely unstable. And even running in my neighborhood, I was concerned with whether I might roll my ankle, slip, hurt my knee because of shifting on the ground. Or maybe even just fall flat on my face because my shoe just didn't have any traction. So the moral of the story is, Nike, get your act together. You really have done a poor job with this outsole, and stop advertising that it's very good traction, because it's definitely not. Enough of that. I'll get off my high horse. I hope you enjoyed this review. Hope it wasn't too long. I just wanted to make sure it gave you some value and hopefully aid you in determining what shoe is best for you. If you like my channel, definitely subscribe. I love to have new subscribers. And if you like this video, hit the like button. If you want to hear more videos or see more videos, then hit the bell notification and it'll let you know when a new video comes out. Hope all of your training is going well. Hope you're enjoying this winter, and hope you're getting some snow like I did. That was really pretty today. And I guess we'll just see you in the next one.